segregation. Mixed groups of whites and blacks, mostly students, challenged segregation on interstate buses and places of public accommodation throughout the South. The sit-ins and freedom rides were a new version of an old and respected American tradition, the right to protest for right, and resulted in the first attempts at federal civil rights legislation. The next target of the civil rights movement was Birmingham, Alabama, in 1963, the most segregated city in the nation, and for blacks, a place to die if you tried to be a person.
I will not rest.
Hospitals in which the surgeons we saw earlier are not allowed to practice. And in some states, we are still restricted by signs like these. Later in this film, we shall see some of the ways in which the situation is changing. But first, let us ask a cross-section of...
We're trying to do about it, but...
These students are typical of many throughout the country, both Negro and white, who have been effective in breaking the barriers of segregation. Sense the confidence and dedication of these young people as they discuss their plans.
Talking about white travelers in the South. From all over the country, mixed groups traveling by bus entered the South. They entered segregated waiting rooms and restaurants in many southern cities. In some, they were arrested. But they were determined to succeed even if it meant going to jail. Negroes were jailed for entering white waiting rooms. Whites were jailed for entering Negro waiting rooms. Over 300 freedom riders went to jail. Nearly half of those were white. Nearly half were women. Once again, the principles of nonviolence proved their effectiveness. For an evaluation of the freedom rides, we asked James Farmer, National Director of the Congress of Racial Equality.
Rarely in America issued a ruling which went into effect on November 1st, ordering that all the segregation signs must come down in the terminals and that in their place must be posted desegregation signs.
How is it?
This is a victory, and the dawn is dimly seen. Only dimly. This is not Montgomery, nor Monroe. This is Glendale, Queens, in the city of New York. A Negro mother speaks.
First, a more unruly demonstration inflicted many bites. Several demonstrators were arrested. White supremacists and Klansmen moved openly in the 10 South.
Negroes made inroads towards integration of schools in the Deep South for the first time in 1960. In New Orleans, white students and their parents shouted and demonstrated against it, The state fought it in the courts. But in mid-November, the New Orleans School Board complied with the federal court order, admitted 4 Negro girls to the first grade in 2 schools. White parents promptly removed their children from the schools, effected an almost 100% boycott. 2, 4, 6, 8. We don't want to integrate, they yelled. Governor Davis and the legislature tried one legal device after another to prevent or stop the integration. But the federal judiciary countered each new move. Federal deputy marshals escorted the Negro girls and the few white children to and from school. Segregationists hurled stones at the white parents' houses, caused some fathers to lose their jobs. Most white parents either transferred their children to private schools or set up makeshift classes for them in private homes. But the order to integrate stood, and despite action taken by the state or individuals, school integration came to the Deep South in 1960.
Might have taken generations. The opportunity came almost by accident, the accomplishment through trial and error. But the element that had never been missing in King's life was an awareness of the Negro's problem. Martin Luther
within the states that had lost that civil war, the states of the Southeast. The Constitution of the United States came under debate as to whether it prohibited or acknowledged such barriers. In 1954, it was made clear by the Supreme Court that the Constitution guarantees equality for all. And so the great tests were made. Tests that...
Traveling by bus entered the South. They entered segregated waiting rooms and restaurants in many southern cities. In some, they were arrested, but they were determined to succeed even if it meant going to jail. Negroes were jailed for entering white waiting rooms. Whites were jailed for entering Negro waiting rooms. Over 300 freedom riders went to jail. Nearly half of those were white. Nearly half were women. Once again, the principles of nonviolence proved their effectiveness. For an evaluation of the freedom rides, we asked James Farmer, National Director of the Congress of Racial Equality.
Effect on November 1st, ordering that all the segregation signs must come down in the terminals and that in their place must be posted desegregation signs.
How is America went right on arguing about what that 14th Amendment really meant. You see, nowhere in that amendment is the word segregation ever used. So a lot of folks, particularly in the South, argue that the Negro could be free and segregated. When President Rutherford Hayes pulled out the federal troops and let the South
beat up people and kill them to keep the black and white divided, and then besides that, to keep the blacks scared and also the whites scared, and to keep racism, you know, going, and it was in a big way.
In spite of the dangers, Southern mill hands kept organizing. In Henderson, North Carolina, sit-ins and freedom rides swelled the movement of the Afro-American people for equal rights. Everywhere, black people demanded an end to discrimination. As the demand for equal rights became a cry for liberation, the movement had to stand up not only to the Wallaces and Eastlands, but to their backers in the North. Despite lynchings, bombings, and mob violence, the freedom movement struck a major blow at those who kept black people in bondage, the same group who had kept unions out of the South. It brought large numbers of black people into the mills and factories in the South. Most important of all, it brought new life and a more militant spirit of struggle to the labor movement.